All right. Welcome to the second part of episode 1 of the turkey effect. Today's episode we'll talk about what the turkey effect was, and if you listen to the video before this one, video 1, you're going to learn what the turkey effect is. And this video is going to talk about problems and solutions of the turkey effect. And this is the Work Grind vlogcast with your host Von Gathings. So real quick, potential problems and simple solutions. Let's look at that first column on the left. What happens when the vital few decides to, and you see all the items at the bottom, we're going to briefly go through all those items. So what happens when the vital few decides to? Who are the vital few? So if you looked at my last video, I talked about a concept of the 80-20 rule or the 20-80 rule, where 20% are considered the vital few or the minority that makes up 80% of the outcome. So 20% of the input makes 80% of the outcome. That's Pareto's law, the Pareto distribution law. So in the context of not creating a job, but the job market, in that context, 20% of those people are job creators. 80% of those people are people who are job seekers, job hunters. You can put consumers in there. So 20% makes up everything, and that's where the vital few comes in. So I want you to remember that the 20%, and that's not an exact number for the labor or statistics. That's just a law and a theory, because the 20% represents a minority. So 20% makes up the vital few, who are the job creators, and 80% are the rest. But what happens when the vital few decides to close up, retire, and or quit? That happens. We have some entrepreneurs who say, I wanted to get in the business of doing this. I reached my goal. I'm done. I want to close up operations, or I quit. I'm going to pass it on to somebody else, and that somebody else isn't as effective. So we need to make sure that in case of that happens, and that somebody else isn't effective who's running operations, or that establishment closes up, that people have jobs, that people, this not a thing of unemployment. So not one and two people that are not without work, that are employed, it makes a world of difference, because we have more consumerism coming in, more people spending and buying, more people that's just making a living. So let's make sure we are prepared when that happens. Take operations overseas. We talked about this a lot during the election cycle. Where are the jobs going? Are they moving? Why are they moving? Who's taking them? A big corporation, any corporation who has the money and the resources, they can do whatever they want. Chicago, for example, we saw a Nabisco plant on the southwest side just pack up and leave, and thousands of workers are without work, a huge void in that community. Well, we had great labor activists. I think Jesse Jackson was somebody out there that was advocating. Labor activists, politicians, leaders in the workforce labor movement, they were advocating that this doesn't happen anymore. But what are you going to do when these big time companies who make millions and billions of dollars, they just decide to pack up and leave because they see workers who will take less money and do more in different countries? So what are you going to do? You have to be prepared for that and make sure we have creators and thinkers who are quick enough to ensure that they are creating work. So that's something we want to think about. Have employees who decide not to hire a particular demographic of people. Let's be honest, there are people in positions of power who are biased. They might be biased to blacks. They might be biased to people with disabilities, and and they believe they can't perform certain tasks because they're in a wheelchair, because they have a slight mental disorder. So we have people who discriminate and are biased due to maybe they don't understand that demographic. So there are laws and sanctions that prevent this, but we know people, there are loopholes all the time in some of our laws, and maybe one day we'll have a conversation about that. But it happens. Let's not act like it doesn't happen. There are people who act like, well, there's a demographic of people being discriminated against. Those are lies. It happens all the time. Or what about if an industry bubble bursts? We know that there are some industries that do good 1 year, 2 years. They have a time on the top, and it just tumbles down the next year. Be mindful of those industries you're entering if you want to enter work there, or if you want to create jobs there. Or what happens if a tech wipeout happens? So what I mean by a tech wipeout, we know technology's taking over. We know there's artificial intelligence, automation, new type of machinery taking over, especially like lower level jobs. So, for example, Amazon Go. With Amazon Go, Amazon's creating a grocery store where you don't have to pay. You just walk right out with your item, and you have an Amazon account. You can pay for it on your phone. So they're doing away with not only cashiers but automated cashiers. That's big for not only people who quickly need jobs, who don't have the same skill levels as others, but people who work on those type of machines in particular. So we got to be mindful of a tech wipeout. And this is why we need ideas and action on people who are implementing a new idea, people who are being creative, who's trying to innovate. We need those things. I'm gonna tell you why we need those things, because you are the future. There's gonna be a lot of places that close down. They're gonna struggle to open up, but we need people who are just gonna take that risk to create dialogue and conversation amongst close ones. Are we having conversations about these things? This is the one reason I wanted to start this vlog cast, because these are conversations that are important, but they kind of go under the weather, under the radar a bit. And because you have dominating conversations about your health, you have dominating conversations about education and law. Where the labor and the workforce conversations are very important, because it's how people make a living. People need to live, so we need to make sure that conversation is not swept under the rug. And your friends, your family, make sure you all are having conversations about these things. Business development amongst underrepresented populations. So what do we mean by business development amongst underrepresented populations? So we know that there are some communities who are dying for jobs, who need work, who need new type of work that's going to be able to have people make a living. So let's talk about in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, where the violence is taking place, and it's just atrocious there. And that's where I'm from, if you don't know. In the south side of Chicago, there have been articles by news stations talking to people who are part of gangs, who know people that are part of violence, who know victims of gun violence. They said those people who they interviewed, those gang members, they were saying things like, jobs will help. And I agree. I don't think jobs will be the end all be all, but we know there are some people that are making certain decisions because they just want to make quick money. They don't get access to jobs. Something has happened where they can't get a job. They probably been declared with like severe mental disorders. They're being discriminated against, or they just have this stereotype amongst them that they might do something at work, so they don't even get the opportunity. Supporting small business. So when we talk about supporting small business, we want to talk about being honest and being critical in a constructive manner. So when we talk about being honest and being critical, there's a lot of small business that they're trying to establish themselves. They're trying to just make a name for themselves, but they probably don't have the resources, the manpower, the number of people to be a really efficient organization. So if you see anything comes up, if you're working at a small business and you probably get bad service or bad quality, just tell whoever's in charge and they can make adjustments on the fly. A lot of people go to Yelp or they go to Facebook and they air out their problems, and it probably doesn't help because whoever's in charge probably doesn't see it until days later, and whatever has taken place has probably happened a few more times. So try to be critical in a constructive way to someone who's in charge. And lastly, let's figure out new ways of support. You don't always have to use cash to support. You can promote the place on social media. You can volunteer, maybe you can find an employee that's going to do great things for that organization. So you don't always have to give cash. Ideally you should. Ideally you should be buying a product or try to use their services without asking for a discount all the time. But there are different ways you can support somebody. Let's pay attention to the following: emerging trends in markets to enter and move away from. And these are things I just want you to take away. So I might repeat some things from the last slide that I feel that's very important. So just bear with me. Pay attention to emerging trends in markets to enter and move away from. I explained that there are industries that are doing good one year and the next year they're not doing so good. So if you want to do something or enter work or start or establish something in those emerging markets or trends that are falling, please do your homework. That's what I'm saying. Just make sure you do your homework about it, because there are people who invest time and money and energy, sweat equity, sweat labor, whatever you want to call it, and just for it to fail. So make sure you do your research before you do anything. Encourage critical thinking from people of all ages. So there is more than one ways to find a solution to a problem. So we have cell phones, we have apps, we have the internet is just improving. It's just a great thing, and we don't have to do things one way anymore. You can do research on how things are done. You can get insight and information. So we don't have to have a linear way of thinking or the 90s way or the 80s way of thinking. There are new ways to do things. So I would use those devices, those social media, because that's what social media was created for, is actually to create a connect with people you don't know. We kind of do the opposite and connect with people we already know. So try to use that. Of course, you don't want to talk to anyone that's creepy or anything, but try to use that to develop new ways to create or innovate. Creating risk takers. So we want risk takers of all ages, because the fearless people are the people that are going to create, the people who are going to fail their way to the top. Not a lot of times in education we have those conversations, especially during your K through 12. You always hear pass, 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 get A's and B's. Well, there's not enough obstacles put the way of in the way of our students. So we need to make sure that our students are failing their way to the top. And when I'm talking about failing, I'm not talking about repeating third grade 100 times, because we know we have some students who do that. I mean, well, maybe there's more projects that can be done. Maybe you can get them more speaking engagements that they can do where they're getting up there and they're failing and they're not doing as well. Get them obstacles. That's pretty much what I'm saying. And even if you're older, do things that you typically don't do. When I was younger, I never heard things like fail your way to the top or don't be afraid to make mistakes. I always thought you were supposed to do something right the first time, and I became very hard on myself for no reason whatsoever. Can't do anything right the first time. Making mistakes is within us. We're going to do them, and we need to make sure that it's okay for people to do them. Of course, there are some mistakes you don't want to make. You can't say, oh my God, I robbed the bank, I made a mistake. No, there's some things that are calculated. So make sure that they're making the right amount of mistakes that they can recover from and become better people and more fearless people and more creative people from. Positive encouragement and reinforcement. For those people who are taking risks, they need pats on the back and reinforcement and support system. Job creation is not for everyone, but we need more. So I am not telling people to quit their jobs immediately. So I hear things on the internet. I see memes where there are people who call people who work 9 to 5 a slave or something, corporate slave. What's the difference from somebody who loves their job and loves what they do, whether they're a teacher, a nurse, an engineer? People might like what they're doing. That doesn't necessarily mean because they choose to clock in or work for somebody they're a slave. Maybe we could talk about if you're getting mistreated on the job and you allow somebody to talk to you a certain way, hold your paycheck all the time, and well, maybe that conversation can shift towards that. That's a form of probably slavery or over dependence. So stop using the word slave for everything. Stop telling people if you are working a 9 to 5 or calling somebody a boss or calling somebody their daddy. I've seen interviews with prominent, I guess I can call them prominent people who are advocate for economic development, economic dependence. They are saying these things, and you have to be mindful of the terms you use and make sure that you are addressing people the right way. Again, if you are working a job, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. However, what I'm saying is we need more creation. We need more people supporting because there are people with great ideas that are holding those ideas, and those ideas are just going away. So we'll make sure that um, if you have those ideas, you develop that support system. But don't quit your jobs immediately just because someone is creating a vlog cast. And I'm sure people aren't going to listen to me. This is my first episode. So if you do plan your work and work your plan, everything takes time. It takes time to make a profit. It takes time to get establishment. For example, with my vlog cast, I know that it's going to take a while for people to get to catch on to what I'm doing. So I'm not going to quit at what I'm doing, but I'm going to do everything I can to try to get it out there and get viewership, but I can't give up. So don't give up because things aren't going right. Talk to people, and I'm trying my best to reach out to entrepreneurs on the show because it's going to be rough. I can tell you that. So lastly, you can be more supportive by inquiring and create new ways to do so. So you don't have to always use cash. I want you to take that away. There's ways you can support somebody. Ideally, we want you to buy whatever products or purchase whatever products or whatever resources the small business has because that's the only way they're going to grow. But you use your social media platforms. Talk to people that says, hey, you can shop here or you can shop there. Talk to people. Volunteer. Ask, can you volunteer or see through that? Does that small business owner need volunteering or yeah, refer an employee to them? I talked about that in the last slide. So you can be more supportive without doing the same old things. Is you have to buy. But if you have the money to buy, please do so, because they're not going to grow and they're not going to be able to pay anybody without buying, without people buying their products. So thank you. I want you to keep some things in mind that next week I'm going to have a show called the long tail, how tech has killed the middle. And what I mean by the middle is I'm talking about the middle class, the middleman that comes in between business creation and establishing a business. So the middle, that's just a broad topic, so it's named like that. I like to do funny names sometimes because it evokes people's curiosity. Coming soon, my friend Benjamin Smith, he's working on a podcast. It's an educational empowerment podcast called Cultivating Young Minds, and I'm very excited for that. So when he gets that up and running, I hope you're working on that, Ben. Make sure you're doing what you have to do, Ben. Even though I know you're busy, you committed to it, but I want you all to support that. We need people who are going to empower our youth, because we can't have these conversations that I'm having if we don't have the people to do so, and it starts with our young people. And coming soon, that's going to be farther down the line, is my show I want to do called Black on a Work Grind, where it's a spinoff of this show, and I'm particularly talking to my people of my culture, my race, my ethnicity, because we know we have some issues in our communities, and we need to make sure we're talking about those. And if for anyone who's offended because the word is black in the title, well, that just sucks, because I don't believe in color blindness. I don't believe that race doesn't exist. It does. And I am more than happy to invite people of all backgrounds who feel they have labor, economic, or issues going on, because we need to make sure we're having conversations and we understand each other, right? We're not going to be divisive about it, but we darn sure are going to be honest and unapologetic. And that is all for today. Please, please, please watch, share, critique, comment. I take everything. If you have an idea, let me know. If you want to get on the show, if you have those organized thoughts, if you have that background, let me know. Thank you. Enjoy your holidays. I hope you're going to the new year happy and healthy, and everything else. Thank you, and take care. All right. And everything else.